Yo, what's up, everybody? We're checking in here, the Boxing Source. Wanted to, get into something here as we're getting more news about what happened there on last Saturday night. That is there. What was that? August 3rd at the BMO Stadium in Los Angeles. Of course, you had the WBA Super Welterweight title on the line. You had the WBO Interim Super Welterweight title on the line. Terence Crawford and Israel Madrimov, right? And, props to Terence Crawford for him getting a unanimous decision win to win those belts. You know what I'm saying? And he was able to acquire those two belts, basically, there and moving forward there in the Super Welterweight division. But here on the Boxing Source, we report on, all things boxing there, when it comes to, results of fights that are announced, fights that are coming up. We got, a couple good cards that are coming up on Saturday there, of course. Top Rank has a fight card. Golden Boy Promotions has a fight card. So you'll be able to enjoy some action there coming up on Saturday night, whether it's on ESPN or the Zone. But we're going to be talking about what the results are from last weekend. Okay. We're looking at, how much interest does Terence Crawford have there in the overall scope of things in the sport of boxing? This was his first fight back since him defeating Errol Spence Jr. for the undisputed welterweight titles. So you had, some intrigue as to, what is the overall appeal there of Terence Crawford? And, some people, were saying like, hey, he's going for a world title in the fourth weight class. Of course, 2-division undisputed champion and looking to be, kind of like say this case is one of the best pound for pound fighters in the sport and one of the best pound for pound fighters in his generation. So was intrigued to see, how what the numbers were going to be for his bout against Israel Madrimov. And we had some early numbers here in reference to the pay-per-view, right? So wanted to bring that up here on this thing real quick because we had this, coming from Mr. Matt of Brunch Boxing, of course, has a website, brunchboxing.com. And this was posted here a few hours ago, pretty much like 3 hours ago there in reference to this. So you have, let me see here if I could get this up, right? Pause. So let's do this here. Shout out to Jesus M here on the live chat on YouTube. So shout out to you on jumping up here with us on the Boxing Source. But let me see if I could share this here. It should be on the screen. It says there, Terence Crawford's reported pay-per-view buy estimates by fight, and shows, a few of these here that he's had. Of course, you had a few there with Top Rank, Victor Postol. That was a unification fight there at 140 pounds. You had the Amir Khan fight that was on ESPN, when Top Rank went over to ESPN from HBO. Then you had that Sean Porter bout for that WBO welterweight title there. That was, what was that, November of 2021, right? There where you had that was at Top Rank ESPN for was estimated of 135,000. Then you had that undisputed world title fight against Errol Spence that was on Showtime. There that was 700,000 pay-per-view buys. And here with Israel Madrimov under the Zone, or at least the Zone's numbers, it says at 87,000. So there, at least like it says through the Zone, that is lower than those two events that he had on ESPN pay-per-view against Sean Porter and Amir Khan, respectively. And so, given, the reported purses there, whether it's, at face value, as far as like what is reported to the California State Athletic Commission or overall, looking at this, man, you got 87,000 pay-per-view buys, whether it's, at 75 or $80, there you can pretty much do the math. I mean, I could hit up the calculator. You got your calculators on your smartphones or your smarter majiggies or whatever they want to call it, right? So let's say here you got $80 per pay-per-view times 87,000, right? So that's about $6,960,000 total there. That's with a $80 price point. So that's around what? That's just shade under $7 million, right? So given the fight purses that you probably would have seen, through maybe it was like Dan Rayfield or maybe Kevin Aioli or maybe let's say Jake Donovan or something like that, where they said reported that Terence Crawford got about $2.5 million reported to the California State Athletic Commission, and Crawford-Madrimov got around like 1.2. But we know it was more than that for both of those fighters. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Brother Ray out of Urban Sports Scene there in the building there from the area, DC area. Shout out to the DC area, man. It says, looks like Bud needs boots or Canelo. Well, hey, I mean, it's looking like that here with these early numbers, when it comes to that, right? And, the thing was, it's like, this kind of like I said, it came through here, a few hours ago in reference to his own numbers. Now, one of the break this down a little bit, like I said before, this is at least through the zone at the very least, right? So if it comes through the zone, of course, a lot of times they try to push this particular event to be through the zone pay-per-view under, US, right? But, for those, that were, following, leading into the fight, you didn't just have the zone pay-per-view. You also had ESPN Plus pay-per-view. You had maybe like pay-per-view.com. At least I've seen something, through Amazon Prime that was, promoting the event or saying that it was available for purchase, right? So, whether this, like I said, it shows their pay-per-view by estimate. So usually that 87,000 is kind of like around that particular range. So at least for me, I'm not necessarily seeing it being much more than that if somebody else, comes through with those numbers. But like I said, 87,000 there, if you kind of like multiply it, then you kind of have a pretty good idea of, what or how much that pretty much got, like I said, around $7 million pay-per-view revenue, that doesn't necessarily, I don't say that it could distribute all the way through, but we see how that goes. Okay, our number one Canelo fan there, Jesus M, he says, I almost said it. You almost got me, Jesus M. I almost said it. Canelo will use the pay-per-view draw against Terence Crawford. Yeah, he could do that. But I mean, but also in a sense though, right? Canelo has basically been on, usually larger platforms, at least recently, right? Because he's had this deal with, Premier Boxing Champions through Amazon Prime, where he's had the thing there, or at least through Showtime in the Amazon Prime, right? So you had at least here coming up with Berlanga. You had it before there with Jaime Munguia. And then before that, you had the thing there with Jermell Charlo. So you could go through those three fights. And then, of course, in the past, like he's fought Caleb Plant on pay-per-view. That it was like around 800,000 pay-per-view buys. You know what I'm saying? You could probably throw in the whole thing there with him and Gennady Golovkin as well. Actually, the one with Canelo and Golovkin, the last one, I think that was on the zone pay-per-view, if I'm not mistaken. So you could also put that into account. But Jesus M, you have a good point there that, he could use that, thing as far as like his overall draw there against Terence Crawford. And we all know about, Canelo's recent comments there towards Turkey Al-Sheikh, as far as like, Turkey Al-Sheikh saying, hey, you got, we got this going on. We're trying to, get him to face Terence Crawford. and kind of like try to push that potential fight. And they were doing that leading into Crawford versus Madrimov, right? But Canelo wasn't biting. He wasn't going for that. Wait till that, at least that particular fight was over. And then, when they had this thing here with the press tour with Berlanga, whether it was in New York over in Los Angeles, that he said, listen, this is my main focus. September 14th, Edgar Berlanga. Anything after that, we could talk. But right now, I ain't even touching it. You know what I'm saying? Ray says Fundora versus Bud would do slightly better. Now, speaking of that, right? I did speak with Sebastian Fundora's promoter, Sam Lukowicz. That interview will be posted here later this evening. Pretty much like I would say about maybe 10:30 or something like that, 10:30 or 11 o'clock or something like that here Eastern time. He did, have a few things to say about what Sebastian Fundora's future is going to be, which is going to be interesting, especially given I guess what has been basically said by Sebastian Fundora. So be sure to lock in to this channel here where we're going to have that interview with Samson Lukowicz, and that will have update there with Sebastian Fundora. But like you said there before, though, like Bud probably does need a marketable opponent in order for him to pull some good numbers. You know what I'm saying? I kind of like said this in an earlier video. I said, look, especially with the thing with Boots, right? I said, hey, if you had an announcement that had Bud Crawford versus Jerome Boots Ennis, like fight fans would know, oh snap, yo, this is a fight. This is this is going to be a fight. So we got to see it. We got to see it. So whether you would probably want to be in attendance or if you want to get the pay-per-view, you'd say, hey, yo, man, I know this is going to be a fight. But I guess here with Crawford-Madrimov, as far as like, at least with the odds going into it, you seen like Terence Crawford at like what is like minus 700 or something like that, 7-1 odds, or 7-1 favorite, as high as like 8-1 favorite when the fight was starting up. That wouldn't be all too hot, but if you have something like with him against Boots Ennis, maybe you have like closer odds and people are like say, hey, okay, you got, the young lion coming up against the veteran there in Terence Crawford. People be interested in it. He says, how much pay-per-view Crawford would generate in my estimation? Good question. And this kind of like goes into one of the things I say here with these numbers. I say it depends on who carries it or who promotes it, because here you kind of like see here as far as like the numbers. One factor is of course the opponent, and two is the network as far as like the overall reach that the network has, right? So with HBO is just strictly, at least at that time, a few years back, that's just HBO. So if it's just Terence Crawford there at 140 in a unification bout, hadn't necessarily, had that particular marquee fight, so to speak, as of yet. So Victor Postol there, he was able to get a unification, HBO, and y'all had that story about him in Top Rank, which I'll kind of like go into here. But you see there, right? Okay, cool. Now you got ESPN. ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports, so to speak, right? Much larger market because it's not like under a premium paywall like HBO would be, but at least you would have the whole thing with the advertising with ESPN that they will be able to try to push the fight. Amir Khan, of course, more known opponent than Victor Postol, but then it was only able to pull 150,000 pay-per-view buys. Sean Porter, two-time welterweight champion, at the time was still, thrown around the top 5 in the welterweight division. Looking to see if he could become a WBO champion. He was already IBF and WBC champ, right? So he could see if he could get this WBO belt. Like I said, hey, I was interested in that fight. when that fight was announced, I was like, yo, that's a fight. I'm going. I don't care what it takes. I'm going. I ended up covering the fight, but forget it. I had already bought a ticket because I knew I wanted to go there and I wanted to see that fight, right? So whether I was going to be there, with a ticket, or I was going to buy the pay-per-view, I was going to be locked in and watch the fight. But there, I thought, at least at that time, because you seen that the talk about Terence Crawford and Errol Spence was starting to, really, really get to a high, up to that point. And, with Sean Porter, of course, he already fought Errol Spence. So at least with this one, I thought you would have had, some, more interest. But it says here that there was less people that bought this pay-per-view than bought the American pay-per-view. And to be honest with you, I like Sean Porter. It would have been is a much more interesting fight with Terence Crawford than American was. You know what I'm saying? So we see. So you saw what happened with that. Then we finally had the bout there with Errol Spence Jr. For the undisputed welterweight titles. The fight that a number of people have been waiting for at least about 5 years or so. Very anticipated fight. 700,000 pay-per-view buys. That's pretty good numbers. Those are pretty good numbers there. At least for me, I feel like that those are really, really, really good numbers. 700,000 pay-per-view buys, and I think I paid like 85 or so, $85 for that. So if you get 700,000, for like 85, hey, that pulled a good amount of money there, with those pay-per-view profits. So that was very good. But you go from that 700,000 to 87,000, or at least here with this estimate. So yeah, that's a significant step down. But again, this is Terence Crawford over a year after his fight with Errol Spence Jr. And I think that might have been a little bit of a factor there too. Houston Sam says Crawford's true draw will be versus Virgil in Tim Tszyu. Yeah, we'll see. Because Virgil Ortiz has been suggested as a potential opponent. Virgil Ortiz does have his upcoming bout at the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas on Saturday. There against Sergey Boychuk before that interim WBC super welterweight title. WBC will have like a whole lot of titles distributed here at this particular point. So Virgil Ortiz gets through this bout. I feel like it's going to be a pretty good bout here against Sergey Boychuk there. So, be sure to tune in for that. That's going to be a good one. I think Virgil Ortiz, at least for Golden Boy now, is Golden Boy's main focus. We recently got news there with Jaime Munguia now signing with Top Rank. So he's not with Golden Boy anymore. We already know about the news about, that guy that fought at 140 pounds or catch weight or whatever it is that defeated Devin Haney. And he ain't gonna be in the scene anytime soon. So for Golden Boy, it's about Virgil Ortiz at this point. So hey, this is gonna be a really interesting fight here for not only Virgil Ortiz, but also for Golden Boy, right? So you do have that. I wanted to see something here if I could. I'm not sure if I got it, but I wanted to see what those weights were for that, if I could have got them. But yeah, Golden Boy really don't send them things there, like how Top Rank would or whatever it is. So yeah, as of right now, I haven't gotten those weights there for at least this particular fight that's coming up tomorrow there. But you also had the thing there with Tim Tszyu. Tim Tszyu is looking like he's about to fight Bakhram Murtazaliev for that IBF super welterweight title. So, we'll see. If Tim Tszyu goes ahead and has that fight with Bakhram Murtazaliev and he wins, he becomes IBF champion. That makes it another intriguing fight there for Terence Crawford. Virgil Ortiz is another one. And then we also said, what may happen with Terence Crawford and Sebastian Fedor. So you have that too. Ray says, hey, undercards play a role too. Jared Anderson, getting knocked out in a good fight did not initially have intrigue, nor did Pitbull Cruz. Got a sack of Bud Card and Turk is capable. Now remember, the thing was, Virgil Ortiz Jr. was slated to be on that card August 3rd against Tim Tszyu. And actually, from boxing fans' perspective, that was the fight that a number of them were really interested in, not Crawford versus Madrimov. They were really interested in Virgil Ortiz versus Tim Tszyu. But when Tim Tszyu was, basically scratched from the card, it said, okay, we try to get, Virgil Ortiz still on that card, and then we go ahead and Sergey Boychuk. But then, I guess Turkey LLC just said, nah, we won't accept Sergey Boychuk. I'm like, why not? It's for the, WBC interim title. Still Virgil Ortiz. You're gonna have Virgil Ortiz, over there in California. That would have definitely been a draw, especially you're gonna have Isaac Cruz on it and have Virgil Ortiz on it. You would have had some a good amount of fans that would be able to support. But he ended up scratching that fight from the card. So that's why you ended up having this be a headline bout on Saturday instead of it being on August 3rd, which could have been a co-feature bout still. So you gotta look at it like that. So I also got to see what the purses are for this fight coming up Saturday with Virgil Ortiz and Sergey Boychuk, because that could also have been a difference in him having this purse here for this main event in Las Vegas in comparison to being either co-feature bout or like the third, like right below Isaac Cruz versus Raul Valenzuela. That could be a difference. But sometimes undercards may play a role, but the way that things are, they try to sell the main event, and a lot of times, like for example, right, June 15th, you had Tank Davis versus Frank Martin. Like that one, I was like, man, there was only like one other fight that I was really intrigued about in the undercard, and that was, of course, Gary Antoine Russell versus Alberto Puello, right? The other two fights, you did have, of course, David Benavidez versus Alexander Gavasik in the co-feature, but that particular matchup was like, David Benavidez being featured at 175 against a former sparring partner, so that was that. But Tank versus Frank Martin was, at least for me, that was like a fight that I was waiting for, for a good little minute. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I was intrigued by that. But here with this, Terence Crawford, like I said, Terence Crawford is on my dream off. You have Terence Crawford that's, favored minus what, like 700 or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like 7-1 favorite, 8-1 favorite. That that ain't much, to like kind of like say, hey, oh, this might be an intriguing fight going in. Madrimov was plus 550 going into the fight. So, some people would be like, I don't think this is gonna be all too high. So I ain't gonna be really that interested in it because I would expect Terence Crawford to win. So why would I be interested? Now, it ended up being a little bit better fight than some folks may have thought, even though, Terence Crawford won by unanimous decision. It still was, a better fight than, people thought it would be. But still, 87,000 pay-per-view buys. Yeah, I'm sorry, that might not be a good look. Like I said before, that's about 7 million. That's about 7 million for pay-per-view. I am still waiting for the California State Athletic Commission to submit the numbers, the gate receipts for this particular event. Because like I was saying before, even with the reported purses, Terence Crawford was reported to get about $15 to $16 million overall for this fight. And if you have that, but your pay-per-view is about 7 million, and the gate could be, I don't know, maybe let's say 2 or 3 million or something like that. I mean, I don't know. I'm just putting out a guess, like 2 or 3 million maybe. Then that's just a total of what, 10 million. And the thing is, usually the gate is what basically pays for the fighters on the undercard. The pay-per-view is basically for the fighters that are involved in the main event. You know what I'm saying? Question. So can this be considered the Terence Crawford era with such low pay-per-view buys? I mean, that's a good question. That is a good question. That's a good question. Let's see here, man. So let's see. I don't know, because I mean, if you consider like the fighters that are like those within the top 3 pound for pound, you have Alexander Usyk, you have Terence Crawford, you have Naoya Inoue. We can't, of course, get American pay-per-view numbers for Naoya Inoue. He's usually in Japan, and with that, you pretty much get to see his fights for free or whatever it is, or ESPN Plus. For what is it? For Alexander Usyk International, so you can't really get that much numbers US there for Alexander Usyk. Like Terence Crawford is the only fighter there that's from the US. You know what I mean? And that's the thing about it, is that we can't necessarily have something, I guess, for Terence Crawford to say maybe it is Terence Crawford era if he has like these numbers. But the thing about it is, his resume is what kind of like states him as being the, I guess, a top fighter within this particular generation. Like I said, you're undisputed champion at 140 pounds. You're undisputed champion at 147 pounds. You had the WBO title at 135 pounds. Now you have the WBO interim title at 154 and the WBA full title here at 154. So, some could say that he might be the most dominant here, I guess, within his era. Now, some might have a case for Alexander Usyk. Of course, what he did in the cruiserweight division and the heavyweight division is something to behold. Like I said, you fight, the top 3 guys basically in the cruiserweight division. Get the undisputed championship, defend it against a notable fighter there in cruiserweight in Tony Bellew. You move up to heavyweight. You fight a grizzled veteran there in Derek Chisora. You have 2 wins over who many could say was the number 2 fighter in the division, Anthony Joshua. And then this year he has a win over the number 1 guy there in Tyson Fury. So I'd say it's basically you could make a case that it could be the Alexander Usyk era. You could. But as far as like Terence Crawford right now, we gotta see what's up. After this, if you see these numbers, it's like maybe you need a better opponent, more intriguing opponent, or maybe he needs to be in a different marketing thing. Because hey, we see what the difference is here when you're with Top Rank, or you're with Turkey LLC, or an independent entity, so to speak, and then when you're with Heyman Boxing, PBC, or whatever it is. And remember, what they were trying to do with this thing with Errol Spence is have Terence Crawford at least locked in for about 3 fights. It could be Errol Spence, and then a rematch with Errol Spence, and then maybe another fight with, like, say, Jermell Charlo or something like that, right? Well, we see what happened. We see what happened here with the first Errol Spence bout. So didn't necessarily have the rematch. So that's why you had Terence Crawford then go for this instead of maybe a fight with Sebastian Fundora, or maybe a Tim Tszyu if Tim Tszyu was at full strength or whatever it was. But now you see this is like, man, I don't know. Like I said, it's gonna be real interesting to see what would be next here for Terence Crawford For me, I think he should get right back in the ring ASAP. I don't see why you can't have another fight before the end of this year. You had more than 12 months before this particular fight against Crawford-Madrimov. Go ahead and have your next one here by December. Get right back in the gym. Get right back in the gym. Keep your name, fresh in people's minds, basically. And say, hey, okay, Terence Crawford back in the ring. This is the guy that's supposed, that's round number one top pound for pound fighter in the sport, and he's back in the ring. You can't have it to where you wait another 8 or 12 months for his next fight. That just can't happen for a guy that is, supposedly among the top fighters in the sport. I mentioned the other two fighters there, Naoya Inoue and Alexander Usyk. Alexander Usyk is about to have a rematch there with Tyson Fury in December. Naoya Inoue is about to get right back in the ring to defend his undisputed super bantamweight titles. So they're staying in the gym. They're still getting fresh. They're all doing all that. But for Terence Crawford, like, he can't have this thing here where it's like one fight a year, especially being 36, 37 years old. Nah, you can't necessarily do that. So might as well just go ahead, see if you can get in another fight this year, whether it may be against Boots or even against, Sebastian Fundora. We might see that. We'll see. We got to see what happens here over the next few weeks as we got some, we're going to have some updated news about that. But also, like I said, just tune in here on the YouTube channel at the very least here a little bit later as I'm going to post the interview that I had with Samson Lukowicz, the promoter there for Sebastian Fundora. So you'll be able to look forward to that. But that's what I had there real quick as far as like this particular thing, man. I mean, 87,000 pay-per-view buys. I mean, like I said, it is the zone, and as far as like the U.S. market is concerned, the zone really doesn't have that much of a market overall for the zone for regular subscribers as it is. So for that particular event, that particular fight, you had to, basically get people interested enough to, either subscribe to the zone and then get a pay-per-view, or just get the pay-per-view, by itself. And that's that. But also, like I said, with a caveat, you also had, other fighters that were part of other promotional organizations. So they wanted to see if they could get in on it and, put in to say, hey, we got this available on pay-per-view as well. So ESPN Plus pay-per-view, you pretty much like had it on that as well. Maybe like pay-per-view.com could have had something, and maybe other outlets. But if you have it like that, where it's basically digital, you can get the digital streams or whatever it is and get those numbers, pretty quickly. So at least here with this 87,000, like I said, that's pretty much going to be around that range that where it is. So the estimates here at 87,000, I don't see it being, that much higher, maybe about 90, 92, 93,000, maybe, I guess, for additional numbers from, other outlets. But 87,000, and that's, pretty much what has been reported there as an estimate. Yeah, that's not going to, at least for me, I don't think that's going to cut it. Like I said before, that's like $6.9 million. Okay. Dang. I don't know. You probably might have to invest in a VPN, Miss B. You might have to invest in a VPN. If anything. Yeah, I don't know if VPN will necessarily work in that particular country right there. So you got to see if you can look into that. But yeah, those numbers there, like I said, around 6.9 million there for pay-per-view revenue, so to speak. And like I said, with those estimates as far as like the purses are concerned. If you have Terence Crawford getting about 14 or 15 million dollars, or maybe more, they're off of a purse, off rip. These returns like necessarily ain't it, but hey, this is a thing here through Turkey LLC. Can whether it's through boxing or through soccer or what was it, Live Golf? I guess when you had the Saudis involved in sports, at least with those things. Like I said, with soccer, they had those crazy contracts through soccer. You had the whole thing with Live Golf and them in the PGA clashing. Because Live Golf, they was paying crazy money for that. And now here with this thing with boxing, they playing crazy money with that. So if the Saudis don't really care about using up all that money to pay these fighters, hey, it is what it is. I mean, but we'll see how long that's going to last here. Like I said, the numbers, hey, as they say, numbers don't lie. Numbers don't lie. And if you continue to lose money here and there and whatever it is, and they had a report there about this particular fight card last Saturday lost about $10 million. I don't know how long they're gonna be in there to lose money. We'll see. Of course, they still have more events coming up there, at the very least here for Riyadh season. So we'll see how they kind of like come through as far as like what happens in September, what happens in October, and at the very least, what will happen in December. They might have something else announced that could be for November as well, but that remains to be seen. Now, as far as like Terence Crawford as an overall draw, yeah, the numbers there are right there in front of you. Like I said, I thought maybe Terence Crawford would get a good amount of interest after, having or being, exposed, so to speak, or having that level of exposure in that bout that he had against Errol Spence in Las Vegas last year. But looks like it didn't necessarily carry over that much there for his fight against Crawford-Madrimov. That's the thing. Reference to, being a, well-known fighter and being a superstar in boxing, where it usually wouldn't matter, what your opponent is. People be still interested because they want to see you fight. They don't care about who your opponent is. They want to see you fight. So with this, it's like, hey, Madrimov, really don't matter. I want to see Terence Crawford. I want to support Terence Crawford. That would kind of like be the thing. That's what they say about, Canelo Alvarez, or what they say about, in a sense, Tank Davis. It don't matter if he faces Frank Martin, Isaac Cruz, Rolly Ribeiro, or whatever. They still want to see him fight. So here with Terence Crawford, I guess Israel Madrimov wasn't I guess an opponent that people were interested in seeing him fight. So there it is. But that was one thing there, real quick. It's about 10:10 Eastern time there. So just want to have that quick little analysis of those numbers. Like I said, we got to see if there's like anything else coming through for what ESPN Plus pay-per-view or pay-per-view.com or anything like that. But from another source that I had, it was like those estimates really wouldn't make it be that much higher than that 87,000 that you saw. And that overall, the card itself really did have I would say a fairly significant loss in it. But we might have a little bit more into that, whether it's through this channel or through social media, particularly through X. I might see if I could get, like I said, I'm still waiting on those gate receipts from the California State Athletic Commission to see what they say about how much the gate revenue was there for that particular fight card. And once I get that, I'll be able to post it there on social media, most notably on X. So you'll be able to check that out. So be sure to follow the Boxing Source on X there. And also, we'll have the Instagram page as well. We're also on Facebook too. So you can follow us through those social media platforms. But that, that's what I got here for this particular report. We'll have more. Like I said, look forward to those fight cards on Saturday. You got Top Rank having something on ESPN and ESPN Plus, and you have Golden Boy with that fight between Virgil Ortiz Jr. and Sergey Boychuk for the WBC interim super welterweight title. It's going to be in Las Vegas here on Saturday. So tune in for that, and then I'll catch y'all later. Peace out.